2017 will be the first year the Donald J. Trump presidency, and the nominations to his cabinet have been rife with controversy, as has his ties to Russia. However, the stock market has responded well to his election, and some are hopeful for what a business-oriented mindset may do for job creation in the United States. Patty, we have talked about Donald Trump for a long time throughout 2016. We will certainly be talking about him a lot in 2017. What do you think might be some of the headlines we attribute to him next year?
Well, it's fascinating with two of the other big terms that came up in 2016, rigged. I mean, this entire year was rigor happy. Like Colorado's election was rigged, the national election was rigged, now the Russians are rigging everything. And the other one was fake news, where no one now knows if you hear that someone's rigging something, you don't know if it's true or if it's false, if it's made up, if it's not. We're going to see a lot of headlines where everyone is going to say, what? Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? First of all, the incredible, unbelievable involvement of Russia, which apparently is all too true. And that is going to, I think, lead the headlines, should lead the headlines for weeks to come as we try to figure out exactly how bad that is, how we can shore up our defenses, how we can shore up our electronics. And then, of course, we are going to have the whole inaugural pageantry, the rumpacious pageantry of what's going on in Washington that's almost beyond belief.
David, it strikes me odd that the current flag bearer of the Grand Old Party, the party of Reagan, Ronald Reagan, who defeated the USSR, who was a staunch enemy of communism, the current flag bearer, our new president, right now is at the very least a supporter of Russia, the very same country. Is that going to put Republicans at odds throughout 2017?
Hopefully, as checks on him. You know, and in the campaign, in the primaries, he adopted the view of Code Pink, the wacko, malicious leftist nuts who said that George Bush invented the Iraq War, you know, for personal business interest and stuff like that. You know, you can criticize the war, but Trump became a truther, in effect. So that's highly disturbing. It's not something that's new. I mean, Secretary Clinton went after him quite hard on that exact issue in the presidential debates, as she should. It was a big topic that was there. On the economy, I think Trump is going to have an easy time getting credit as a job creator, because it's like if you say, oh, my foot was hurting, my feet have been killing me for months, and then I went to this podiatrist, and in 5 minutes I felt so much better. And he's a wonderful doctor. Well, in fact, what did the podiatrist do? Well, the patient had shoes that were 4 sizes too small, and so he just took the shoes off. This economy has the government's foot on its throat with illegal Obama regulations that are crushing it and also causing energy prices to be higher than they would, simply by the executive actions of getting rid of these guidances and dubious regulations, which is something that can be done in a matter of months. Trump will dramatically help the economy. Doesn't have to pass a single thing through Congress, but he can be economically successful just with that.
Eric, I think David brings up an interesting point about the economy, because regardless of who's in the White House, the economy is a cycle. I at least remember that from my economics courses in college. And while Colorado has been doing better than many other states, we haven't seen inflation for a long time around the United States. It seems like we're overdue. Do you think that President Trump will be dealing with that problem in 2017?
I think any president, first and foremost, presides over the economy. Now, in saying that, there's a myth that presidents have more power to regulate the economy and regulate some natural economic cycles than is probably the case. But I significantly, not totally, but significantly agree with David's point here. If Donald Trump, through policies, through tone, through deregulatory activity, and if there's a main theme to his cabinet appointments to date, it has been a real emphasis on deregulation, which is not all bad. If he can get this economy growing again at 3 or 4%, that solves a whole lot of other problems, or gives a whole lot of other people hope and opportunity that don't have them. We have been in a relatively stagnant, low-growth kind of economy ever since emerging from the Great Recession. We have gotten used to 1% or 1.5% kind of growth and sort of worshiping at that altar, as opposed to the old days of much more significant economic growth. I think this is going broader. I think it's going to be a wild ride. I think there will be all kinds of storylines to Donald Trump. I think the real ones I'm on the lookout for is if he has it within him to reach out to people who are not naturally within his camp. Yes, he's been flying around doing victory rallies. Yesterday was Hershey, Pennsylvania, or we're taping this ahead of time. But to all of his core supporters, and that's all well and good. If he wants to do those victory rallies, fine. At some point, he has to go into Blue America. He has to talk to some audiences that are very nervous about him. He has to provide some reassurance that he hears them, he respects them, he will listen to them in some way, that he will be their president as well. I do not know if constitutionally, internally, he has that within him. He has to also somehow figure out a way to put a lid on the tension that is boiling in this country. And there are hateful elements in this country that somehow have taken permission from Trump's victory, and he needs to rein those in, and that is his responsibility.
Penn, the concept of the relations between Russia and Donald Trump, there's a lot to go with there, but does it become a foothold for Democrats looking for something to say, okay, if we're going to be the minority power in Congress, what are we going to do with it? Does that become a foothold for them to glom onto? And ironically, I think a comment you made 2 weeks ago on the show, not wanting to sound like a Cold Warrior, but looking at Russia as an enemy, not as a great ally, do Democrats have a foothold there?
They do. Democrats, I think, have a number of footholds. When you look at this presidency, it's kind of ironic. Eric talked about his victory laps to Red America, basically. But the other thing he's doing is he's going to these places that are sort of hotbeds of discontent, blue-collar communities. And we've talked about this before. The irony of this election is he has nothing in common with these people who supported him. This guy never grew up having to work for a living. He came from wealth. And when you look at his cabinet, I mean, you've got a cabinet now that, if reports are accurate, their total combined wealth of those who have been identified is about $9.7 billion. They have a greater combined wealth than 43 million households, almost a third of the households in America combined. Oh yeah, they're going to make sure the economy does well because it's in their best interest. They are, in many respects, the economy that has fueled this country for decades. And so they have a vested interest in the economy doing well. The issue is going to be whether this president honors his word and makes sure that prosperity is shared by working class families. He's never done it before, not in his private business dealings or in any other effort that he's undertaken. So whether he'll have the conviction of character to do it based on how he campaigned and ran is a whole nother question.